On the debate tonight, controversy has broken out over the election calendar for the Lok Sabha polls. Last Sunday, the Election Commission announced a 7-phase Lok Sabha election spread over a whopping 39 days.
First phase, 11th April. Second phase, 18th April. Third phase, 23rd April. Fourth phase, 29th April. Fifth phase, 6th May. Sixth phase, 12th May. Phase 7, 19th May.
Back in 2014, the national elections were spread over 9 phases and were spread over 36 days. The Election Commission has said this time, with an additional over 8 crore electorate and with nearly 10 lakh polling booths, the calendar has been designed keeping the availability of the additional security forces in view.
Constraint of availability of central forces and other logistics, requirement of security forces for security of candidates in wake of the recent incidents of violence in the recent past, and keeping all other challenges in mind and keeping a totality of views, the Commission has decided at this stage to announce only schedule of the Parliament elections in Jammu Kashmir.
Political experts claim the calendar will impact the level playing ground, while poll pundits claim the election calendar has been designed to benefit the BJP. As controversy over the Lok Sabha dates snowballs, Mirror now asks, will the longer poll schedule benefit better funded political parties? Will a longer schedule increase chances of malpractice or violations of code of conduct? Will the longer schedule freeze government policy? Why can't assembly polls be held simultaneously in Jammu and Kashmir? Let's debate.
Well, as citizens of this glorious country and this very, very large democracy, obviously it's a complicated process. The Election Commissioner has detailed several times the compulsions behind choosing these dates. Everything from school exams, schedules of teachers, the weather, the harvest, festivals in the months of April and May, and of course, the possibility of violence and the security that the election needs. But there are some questions that have been asked. Even though the previous election had 9 phases and this one only has 7, it's stretched over a longer period of time. Does the longer period of time favor parties with more money and the ability to sustain a campaign for longer? Just one of the questions we're going to try and answer this evening. On the show with me, Yogendra Yadav, National President of Swaraj India, who's always had, through his career, a very keen interest in elections. Anila Singh for the BJP, Adil Singh Boparai for Congress, Javed Ansari, very senior journalist, Bharat Kumar Rao, political analyst, and Kingshuk Nag, senior journalist as well. We'll start without our political guests. Mr. Yadav, good evening and thank you for joining us. You raised some of these questions yourself when the schedule was first announced. Have you found the answers satisfactory, or do you believe the longer schedule of elections actually favors parties with more funding and more money?
Faye, first thing first, we should be careful about critiquing the Election Commission because it's a very responsible institution, and one should not straight away get into political accusations. I remember when I was a young lecturer in a university, for some reason I was tasked with this job of making timetable for my department. And it's a thankless job. You have to factor in so many things. And at the end of it, it's so easy to criticize a few things. So I would resist the temptation of that. We have to be very careful. There are questions, but let's not ask wild questions. Let's not put wild allegations. This is not a political game here. Number 2, as far as the overall stretch of time is concerned, this has been a long-standing issue. This election is slightly longer, not substantially longer. To my mind, there has to be we have to find a way of shortening this window. But that's not to do with this election. It's a long-standing concern addressed to Election Commission as an institution. To my mind, the real question, there are 2 real questions and one which has been asked which I don't quite see the merit of. The one real question is that in states like Orissa and West Bengal, the schedule has been stretched in ways that doesn't seem to quite, there are no obvious reasons for that. Orissa is a small state, not more affected by Maoism than Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, which go in one phase. To do Orissa in 4 phases doesn't make sense. And every one of us knows Orissa is one state that the BJP is eyeing to increase its position. Same the case with the West Bengal. That's one thing that I don't fully understand. The other is Jammu and Kashmir. Every single political party there demanded that Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha should be held together. Constitution requires that it should be done. And then to say we can hold Lok Sabha elections, but we cannot hold Vidhan Sabha elections. This defies logic. I mean, there has to be political logic to it. But if there is a political logic, it should be spelled out. There has been a lot of questions about Ramzan, but something that I have looked at closely and looked at the evidence, I found that there was no merit in the allegation about Ramzan. The fact is that Ramzan is not a one-day festival. It's a 1-month-long religious ritual. And the election window is a given window. You can't change it very much. And if you look at the constituencies of Muslim concentration, it is not true that constituencies with Muslim concentration fell in the Ramzan period. So Election Commission has taken precautions. So I would not criticize the Election Commission on those 2 things. The last point I wish to make is, should we be bothered even about these limited observations that I have made? Normally, I would not have been. But Election Commission is a sacred institution. In the last few years, more than once, we have found the Election Commission vacillating, slightly bending backwards to accommodate the government. This is what makes it so very critical to keep an eye on what the Election Commission is doing and to demand reasons, to demand public rationale for what we are doing. And that's why we are discussing it here.
Well, that's a very, very fair answer. And I'm going to go around the panel and give everybody a chance to make those arguments. Javed Ansari, same question to you. Do you see merit in the questions that have been asked, some by opposition, some by journalists and poll pundits, about the schedule designed by the Election Commission? Is there any merit in those questions at all? Or do you think these are matters being worthy of being discussed right now?
Look, for one, there are no holy cows, so everything can be discussed, but we need to do it with utmost responsibility. I don't subscribe any motives to the Election Commission. I am a firm believer that the election period can be condensed. I don't, for the life of me, understand why a parliamentary constituency like Anantnag, polling has to take place on 4 separate days. Why must a polling in a parliamentary constituency happen in 4 different phases? I fail to understand why the Election Commission continues to view Uttar Pradesh and Bihar from the prism of the 1970s and the 80s. Things are a lot better now. 7 phases just makes no sense in Uttar Pradesh. It can be condensed into 3. And also look at it from the other point of view. Even the candidates, even those seats where elections will be held in the 7th phase, which is on the 19th, for them this is going to prove a very, very costly election, because in effect what you have is 70 days of electioneering, 70 days of campaigning, and their costs will keep multiplying. So the Election Commission ought to, take a very hard look at all this. As far as this bogey about Ramzan is concerned, it's absurd and it's a manufactured controversy. Muslims go about doing their job. They go to schools, they go to universities, they go to undertake all their professional obligations that they have to. So if even if they have to go out and vote in Ramzan, they will do it. I don't think this is something that we can accuse the Election Commission about.
I just want to point out to our panel that we've not raised the Ramzan question at all on the channel, because we don't pick up, this sort of religious questions. But I'm grateful that you've clarified it. Yes, yes. Mr. Rao, same question to you. Do you believe that that the election schedule could stand to be, shortened a little bit, and that would give us more efficiency, even perhaps in security and the control of malpractice and violations of the Code of Conduct.
Listen, I do believe that if the election period is shortened as much as possible, that is better for democracy also, because I'm not comparing India with America, no. But America geographically is 3 times bigger than India. Despite that, the presidential election happens in one go. Why do we take 5 weeks to complete the process? But I'm notwithstanding this argument or this observation, I can say that if the elections had to happen, there is a major exercise, the biggest exercise of any democracy. In that case, we have to take in perspective every angle. And in that, so if the election commission has thought that yes, the process should go on for 5 weeks, it is okay. I don't think it matters much. If you remember, for the first elections of 1952, when that was going on for 3 months or little more than 3 months. So it happens. I don't see much credence in the criticism against it. Now what is mentioned in Orissa, it could have been curtailed, but in one state if it is curtailed and the total period of electioneering, the voting remains the same, how does it make difference? So it's okay. A state like Gujarat traditionally has been voting in one phase. It is voting in one phase this time also. So I think the election commission has not made bigger experiments and gone by the common wisdom or traditional wisdom and has scheduled it. I am not again raising the issue of Ramzan because that is a religious issue, but I think election commission has taken into consideration those emotions and those compulsions also. So I am really satisfied with the way it is being done.
Mr. Kingsuknag, interestingly, we've seen West Bengal and Orissa. West Bengal will have 7 phases, Orissa will have 4, but Andhra Pradesh and Telangana won't. Do you find that curious as well?
Well, I find most curious that Mr. Chandrasekhar Rao, the Chief Minister of Telangana, had stated on the floor of the House a few weeks ago that he has requested the Election Commission, A, to have a one-day poll in Telangana, B, that the poll should be in the early phases. And that's exactly what's happened. This is one thing. Number 2, West Bengal has so many phases, and I think that is also related to the fact that there's going to be this anticipation of a lot of violence in West Bengal. And since the dates of the election are all about police forces, whether police forces are available, central police forces are available, I think that's why the Election Commission doesn't want to take chances and has extended the date of West Bengal to many phases. That is the second reason, I think, in these 2 cases. And Andhra Pradesh, of course, is also one day. I think if that's why if the Telangana is one day, they have made West Bengal also one day. As far as Orissa is concerned, I really can't understand why it's 3 days. Maybe it has to do something with the infrastructural movement of the Central Reserve Forces. But the third thing is that in the first election, your first election was 4 months, so you can say that now the population has gone up so many times, the electorate has gone up so many times, the number of seats have also gone up. So if your first election, which was of course a learning exercise, could have been was 4 months long, it is okay if you have it 2 months here. But at the same time, you have to understand the spirit of electioneering is lost. A lot of money is being spent.
Yes. Mr. Nag, when you say that the Chief Minister of Telangana requested a single-day polling and in the beginning of the entire calendar, what benefit could he have seen, in that single-day polling and in the being at the beginning of the calendar?
I mean, beginning of the calendar, probably he thought that he doesn't have to extend, and so much in this hot summer to go on electioneering everywhere may be a problem. And one day also is a fast election instead of campaigning here, campaigning there. I think he's well positioned. That's why. If a party is not very well positioned, they'll want to stretch the elections. But if you are well placed, you know that your main opposition, the Congress party, is not doing too well, you are confident of winning the polls, then you want it to be fast. I think it's like a student going to exams. If he's not performing very well, he'll want the exams to be staggered. And if he thinks he's doing well, he'll want the exam to be done in one stroke. I think that was the logic of K. Chandrasekhar Rao.
Mr. Yadav, obviously,
The main problem of elections, nobody answers.
Yeah, sorry, forgive me, Mr. Nag, go ahead. The main problem of elections is?
I was saying something. I was saying that the main problem of elections is the number of population is increasing, but the number of seats are not increasing. The number of seats has frozen at the level of 1971. So that is by itself making a fun of democracy. And that's a very pertinent issue which has not been discussed. The number of seats in parliament, as you know, have been frozen in 1971, and this freeze will be defreezed in 2031. In the meanwhile, the population of the country has gone up so many times. As a young boy, used to live in Delhi. In 1971, I remember the electorate of Delhi would be some 1 lakh. Today, it might be 20 lakhs. So there has to be more competition, and these are things where we have to talk of reforms in electoral processes and not look at dates. That's my feeling. I think you can ask this question to Yogendra Yadav also.
Yes, I was going to ask that question of Yogendra Yadav. Mr. Yadav, my other question to you is this. So explain to our audience in layman terms, when you hold an election for the central government, which is the Lok Sabha election, it involves booths, it involves security, it involves using schools as spaces where the election process can take place. How would a simultaneous election change the security needs of Jammu and Kashmir? Why would it be that the Election Commission would decide that we can have the Lok Sabha elections, but we can't simultaneously also have elections for assembly?
First, about that question of size of Lok Sabha constituencies. Yes, that's a very major issue. This issue is beyond the Election Commission. It's a constitutional issue. And the larger problem is that the scale of our constituencies is just so large. Our parliamentary constituency is like contesting one full state anywhere else in the world. But that's a larger thing. So we should keep that out of today's discussion. It's a larger question of our scale being such that does not allow any direct, meaningful representation. On the issue today, the Election Commission would say that yes, we have problems of security force movement and so on and so forth. The problem is, why have we assumed that in every single state, police is not enough? That you need central paramilitary forces in every single state of the country? You don't. There are very limited areas. I do agree that West Bengal is one of those states where there is a serious apprehension of violence. Yes, it needs to be addressed. But do we need 7 phases for that? I think somewhere along the line, the Election Commission has fixed the bar of security requirements so high that now they are caught in that trap and they have no way except to then stretch it out over 7 weeks or something of that kind, because otherwise there is you can't move the security forces. So something needs to be reviewed there, but that is not about this particular election. That's a larger thing. On Jammu and Kashmir, the Commission might think, and I would like to know their reasoning, that if you have assembly elections, then you would have very intense local political activity. And for that, you really need to have the security apparatus for the entire duration on a very high alert and so on and so forth. Parliamentary election, they know the turnout is sometimes 10%, sometimes it's been 7% in the valley. And therefore, is the Election Commission in a sense participating in this idea that let's keep the turnout low, it doesn't matter, let's go through the formalities, the real election is only the assembly election. Politicians can say this. I do not expect the Election Commission of India to share this view. I would just come back finally to Orissa and Bengal.
Yes.
I do not know what the intention of the Election Commission has been, but I can tell you the consequences. The consequence in Orissa used to have 2 phases. It has for the first time been turned into 4 phases. The consequence of this is that the BJP, which is making a very, very serious bid, in fact, if you were to name one state in the country which would be on target of Mr. Amit Shah, where he says, I would be able to improve my tally substantially, it is Orissa. Now, with 4 phases, it provides his party enough time, it provides them the space that they need to ensure that the Prime Minister can cover Orissa properly, that BJP can actually have very intense campaign. In a state like West Bengal, the consequence of this schedule, again I'm not speaking of intentions, the consequence of this schedule would be that a smaller party like BJP with a limited cadre would be able to also move its cadre from phase to phase and be able to do slightly better than it would have otherwise done. Now, these are things which people are likely to read into the schedule. And it would have helped if Election Commission had specified, had clarified, and had not announced a schedule which would naturally give rise to anxieties of this kind.
Well, another quick question to you, Mr. Yadav, is that of anti-incumbency or incumbency right now. We do know from latest state elections that the Telangana Chief Minister and that party in the TRS are in a very comfortable place. Is that perhaps why parties like Mr. Nag said, parties that are currently in comfortable places would want quick elections to be in and out? And like you said, there are some other states where there would be a consequence to those who are trying to make an entry to have longer stretched out election calendars.
Yes, in the case of Telangana, the consequence of what the Election Commission has announced would be that it suits Mr. Chandrasekhar Rao perfectly. But from that, let us not infer the intentions of the Commission. Okay. Because no matter which way you announce it, it is bound to suit someone, it is bound to go against someone else. No matter, and incidentally, a chief minister or a government expressing a preference about date and phase is not new. This is a routine question which is asked to all state governments about, and in any case, these are states which have had a tradition of limited phases of polling. So in Telangana, at least you cannot say something out of the ordinary has happened. What is happening in Orissa is out of ordinary, and therefore some question need to be asked.
Some questions do need to be asked. We have two members of the political class with us, Anila Singh for the BJP and Adil Singh Bopra for the Congress. Adil, you first. The opposition, specifically also in Bengal, has raised questions about the election calendar. Do you agree with Mr. Yogendra Yadav that the consequence of the calendar could mean an advantage to the BJP in some states?
Well, Faye, the Congress has no doubt in their mind that the Election Commission, unfortunately, has become an extension of the PMO. And that is why the delay in the announcement of the elections. Perhaps he had to get his go-ahead from Mr. Modi. But be that as it may, we are battle-ready and the country is yearning for change. But let me take Mr. Yadav's point further. States like West Bengal, states like Orissa, states like Maharashtra, states like Karnataka, these are states where the BJP is delusional about making certain inroads and improving its tally. Why is it that the election schedule in all these states has been staggered? Why is it that the phases have been increased? Now, we all know that the richest party in the world is going to benefit by the extension of the poll schedule. So these are certainly germane questions and the Election Commission of India must answer. We've seen in the past during the Gujarat Assembly elections how Mr. Modi was campaigning on the date of voting. He was campaigning on that. There was a formal complaint made to the EC, but the EC took no cognizance of the complaint. There have been several instances in the past where the Election Commission of India has actually leaned in favor of the BJP. Well, so therefore, these are issues which the ECI cannot brush under the carpet. And finally, on the question of Jammu and Kashmir, I think this is an acknowledgement by the BJP that the situation has worsened. This is for the first time after 1996 that the state election schedule and the state elections have been deferred. So much for Mr. Modi's 56-inch chest that today we can't even hold elections in an integral part of India. Will there be any accountability for his Kashmir policy?
All right. Okay. So obviously you fired that round immediately as soon as you started speaking. But I do know Bharat Kumar Raut has a response to you. Mr. Raut, go ahead. And I'm opening this up to the panel to respond to Adil. Mr. Raut, go ahead. Do you have a rebuttal for him?
Hello.
Yeah, I only want to ask one question. Adil made some observations about Election Commission being subsidiary to the Prime Minister, and it has gone as per the advice or guidance of the Prime Minister, that the schedule is suiting the Prime Minister's party. I don't think we should attribute any type of such motives against the Election Commission, at least when the elections are round the corner. Election Commission does not report to the Prime Minister in first place. So it has nothing to do with who is the Prime Minister and which party he belongs to. As you know, the Election Commission is an independent body and it has proven it time and again. So there is no point in attributing any motive in this.
30 seconds.
After saying this, then I would say that if the Election Commission has taken the decision, we can criticize the decision, but don't attribute any motive to that.
Okay. I just want to give Yogendra Yadav an opportunity to respond before, because I do know, I'll come back to you, Adil. I will give you an opportunity to rebut. But Adil, the thing you have to talk about, you have to think about is when you make an allegation as serious as the one you just did, how then did your party manage to win Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh? And we'll come back to that, and I know you have an answer already, but Yogendra Yadav, do you want to respond to the allegations made by Adil Singh Bopra of the Congress?
I was sorry to hear that language. To say that Election Commission is an extension of PMO and to draw it based on that schedule, I have raised questions about the schedule, but I would not say that this schedule itself is an evidence to suggest that it is an extension of PMO. I would not use that language at all. But I would only agree with one limited point, and it's, I think, important about institutions, that critical institutions, that we speak with care. That ever since the Election Commission acquired the kind of stature that it did under Mr. Sheshan, 1990, 1991 and so on, after that currently the Election Commission's image for autonomy and independence is on the lower ebb. So while in other elections you only watch parties, in this Election Commission itself is being watched. So far in the last few days, especially on the issue of use of security forces, advertisement, etc., Election Commission has acted very fairly.
Yes.
I would only say, let it be a case-to-case judgment rather than a sweeping presumption.
Very fairly said, sweeping presumption. Anila Singh hasn't spoken yet. Anila Singh of the BJP, do you want to make an opening statement before I go back to Adil?
Faye, the topic which we are discussing is about the 7-phase elections which are going to happen in upcoming months. And I really fail to understand that why such controversy is being cropped up by the opposition. And especially if we talk about couple of states. Why Orissa is being covered in 4 phases, why it is not covered in 2 phases, why Jammu Kashmir assembly elections are not happening simultaneously with the parliamentary elections. I mean, this is the prerogative of Election Commission of India to
No, but one second. No, Anila Singh, you were fine until you made that last point. And I'm going to stop you there, forgive me. But it was the Home Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, who made a commitment to Parliament that Jammu and Kashmir will have state elections and a state government will be put in place as quickly as possible, and that is a priority for the government. So it's fair to say that yes, it's a prerogative of the Election Commission, but there was a commitment made to the country and to Parliament by the government that Jammu and Kashmir would return to having a state government. So why isn't there state elections taking place in Jammu and Kashmir? Would you be able to answer that question?
Absolutely. Very well said, Faye. And this proves that Election Commission of India works from its own thought process. It is not being commanded, or it is not the extension of the PMO as being accused by the Congress spokesperson. So the Election Commission of India is going to decide when the elections are going to happen. Though Home Minister of our country, he promised that he will try to get the elections happen as quickly as possible. But perhaps Election Commission of India didn't think so. So instead of saying that the Election Commission of India is the extension of the PMO, and you and Mr. Yadav very rightly interrupted and you corrected him that it cannot be the extension of the PMO. I mean, these are the independent bodies. Like today it is our government, Bharatiya Janata Party government. Yesterday it was somebody else's government. It doesn't mean that these agencies are going to work under any political head. They have to work independently, and it is their moral duty.
All right. So, Anila Singh,
to conduct
effectively
the elections properly and without the loss of any life.
Okay, I want to open this up to the rest of the panel. Just raise your hand if you want to come in. And I think specifically we have to focus on Jammu and Kashmir, Because to turn around and say it's purely the prerogative of the Election Commission and Jammu and Kashmir being left out while other states have been considered for simultaneous poll. Mr. Yadav, go ahead, and then I'll come back to Mr. Ansari. Mr. Yadav first.
Look, let's not get into such formal platitudes. Purely the prerogative of Election Commission. Of course it's not. Election Commissioner himself said in the press conference, he said, it is after consultation with the government. It is after consultation with law and order agencies. Of course, Election Commission is duty bound, constitution bound to actually hold it along with this. They have no reason. So there is no constitutional legality that prevents the Election Commission in its wisdom not to hold elections. They are simply saying, look, we have security inputs, we have law and order inputs, based on which we have taken this call. The question is, what are those law and order inputs? Who gives those law and order inputs? Of course, the central government gives it. Of course, because they are also in control of J&K today, the assembly stands dissolved. And please remember, all this comes in a political context. The political context in J&K is this, that PDP was an ally of the BJP. Situation gets bad. BJP decides, all right, enough to dump the PDP now. They dump them. Then PDP and NC come together. They have the numbers. They stake a claim and say, all right, let's form a government. Then suddenly the governor's fax machine, if you remember, stopped working. Suddenly this strange decision takes place. The assembly is dissolved. Remember, the people of Jammu and Kashmir are watching this entire drama. If at the end of it, this very unusual declaration comes to say, we have law and order situation good enough to hold parliamentary election, but not good enough to hold assembly election, people will read political meanings in this. And this could have been avoided.
Very well said. Mr. Ansari, I saw your hand go up. Go ahead.
Yeah, the point I want to make is, if we can't hold elections in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, simultaneous assembly and state and Lok Sabha elections, then what happens to this government's claim that was made earlier in the year of one country, one poll, which is having simultaneous polls for both state assemblies as well as for parliament? If we can't hold it in one state, how on earth are we going to hold it across the country? And there is one reform I would be very keen on the Election Commission enforcing, which is the use of VVP pads. The opposition obviously has demanded 100%. 100%, even if 100% is not possible, at least 30%, 25 to 30%, if this can be implemented, this will go a long way in assuaging some of the concerns regarding fair play that people have. Because, like I said earlier, there are no sacred cows here. The Election Commission must not only do the right thing, it ought to be seen as doing the right thing. So therefore, the Election Commission should put its entire weight behind this demand and ensure that this is done as expeditiously as possible.
I know that Adil wanted to rebut when Bharat Kumar Raut corrected him about the allegation you made about the Election Commission. I can see your hand up. Go ahead. Adil, go ahead. Let's just open this up now. Adil, go ahead.
Can I come in, Faye?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't say he corrected me. That's his perspective. We share a different perspective. Be that as it may. Let's be very clear, Faye, and let us not be naive. Let us not forget that the elections in West Bengal, Orissa and Karnataka have been extended, keeping in mind certain logic and certain rationale. Now, any person who's been on the ground, and Mr. Yadav has much more experience than any one of us on the panel, that a party which has unlimited resources benefits from an extended poll schedule. Therefore, this is a legitimate question. Why is it that these three states where the BJP hopes and intends to make gains, why is it that the election schedule has been staggered? Why is it it's been extended? This is point number one. Point number two, as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, I again want to emphasize on this point. This decision of the EC, which of course is in consultation with the Home Ministry and the state administration under the governor, is an acknowledgement that they have failed in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. I think much has been said by Mr. Modi about national security, about, assimilating Kashmiris. I think this is a monumental failure of the BJP government for which they are answerable. They can't get away from this.
Adil, the other thing I want you to address, when you say, and I'm quoting you here, when you said the Election Commission functions as an extension of the PMO, how do you explain the Congress's sweeping wins in Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh?
Well, let's be clear, it's the people's power, notwithstanding the fact. I'll give you an example, the VVPAT cross-checking example. The Congress party said that if it can't be 100%, at least have a significant number so that people's concerns can be allayed. The EC is still vacillating on this issue. If you have VVPATs, why don't you have a cross-checking which is up to about 15 to 20 or maybe 25%? Let's put this issue to rest. There is a purpose behind having VVPAT system. There have been malfunctionings, there have been manipulations, alleged manipulations in Kairana and Bhind. The EC was reluctant to even entertain something like this.
Okay.
They've been summarily dismissing objections. There have been advanced countries like the United States, Netherlands and several other countries in the Western world who have switched to a system. The EC has been summarily rejecting it. Be that as it may, notwithstanding the fact that the EC, unfortunately, it appears is leaning in favor of the BJP, the Congress party and the opposition will emerge victorious because ultimately it's people's power. Today this country is yearning for change. This is the clash of ideologies.
Okay, all right.
You would concur with me.
I'll stop you before your political
in this country has collapsed.
Campaign speech begins. But Bharat Kumar Raut wanted to respond.
I have to come in. I think
yes,
so
yes.
is accusing Bharatiya Janata Party. You should give me a chance to
okay,
explain
1 second.
at least.
Anila Singh, I want you to remember first of all that other than the Congress, nobody has made a outright accusation. There have been no accusations on the panel at all. In fact, most of the panelists are very clear to say the Election Commission is independent. And we should be very careful, even when we are asking questions of the Commission. Mr. Raut, go ahead, please.
Now, here I would like to bring up the Kashmir issue again, and I would like to support what Mr. Yadav has been saying all this while, that the Kashmir Assembly has been dissolved, I think if I am not mistaken, around 4 months ago.
Yes.
So it is the duty, Election Commission on one hand and the government on the other hand is duty bound legally and morally to give the people of Kashmir and any state the popular government as early as possible. Now that these elections were anyway happening, it would have been whatever difficulties they might be facing, they should have conducted the election, assembly election also simultaneously. Now, if now the government or the election commission wants to hold the Kashmir election, even earliest, that would take 2 more months.
Yes.
So it means how long you will be keeping the Kashmiri people deprived of their popular government. So this was the opportunity God sent. So that should have been taken. But I don't know for what reasons, but the election commission has decided to defer it. I personally don't agree, but I don't attribute any motive to that.
No, but okay, we have to. I noticed that all the panelists keep saying we don't attribute motives to the Election Commission. But I have a very simple layperson question to ask, and that is this. If you're going to have a Lok Sabha election, you'll take a school building, you will make it a booth, you will put security outside that building, you will get the school teachers to man that entire process, you will put dabbas in there that will have actual voting machines and people will go and vote. Technically, if you are also going to have state elections, you will put another dabba next to that. So, you will have 2 boxes, one for Lok Sabha and one for state, and the rest of the entire structure should ideally remain the same. So, I still haven't understood what the Election Commission or the Government of India might mean when they say we don't have adequate security to also hold the state elections. How would the two be different? And now I'm opening this up. So Anila Singh, since you said you wanted to respond, please tell me, how is it different to have the state elections simultaneously? How does the security situation change?
To start with, I think so it is more than 2 years since Prime Minister of our country had been advocating for the simultaneous elections. And at that time, whole of the opposition, they were criticizing him in and out. So let us not discuss about it.
What do you mean,
these were the political parties who were singing their chorus against Prime Minister. Yes. And today, if we are talking about Jammu and Kashmir, I think so Election Commission understands very well that when to conduct the elections, and if few of the panelists
Anila Singh, you haven't been listening to us.
Should have been conducted together No, Faye, please.
No, I want to, I want to lodge my formal
and then you can
unhappiness
say
about the
whatever
fact
you
that you
want.
haven't heard the other panelists say that the Election Commission will actually consult the government and security agencies, and they largely ask the local government also to give them advice on security arrangements. So you haven't been able to answer that question. What changes between the security arrangements of a Lok Sabha election and the security
then you
arrangements of a
agree-
simultaneous
all right.
election?
All right. All right. You agree to that point. So Election Commission must have got some inputs from the administrative authorities of Jammu and Kashmir not to conduct both the elections together. So I think we should allow Election Commission of our country.
No,
to
you know
take
what?
the
You know what?
decision.
I'm going to put my.
And I
I'm
need
going
to
to stop
tell one
everyone,
more
and
thing.
I do
Why?
realize that everybody's saying we should not attribute motives. I'm not attributing motives, but as a citizen of this country, I believe we have the right to ask questions of any agency. We should be able to understand why you made this decision, given currently nobody can see the logic in this decision. There is no logic. So if you can't turn around and tell us that there must have been something, that they are in some way privy to some sort of secret information that is not backed by logic.
I am not the spokesperson of Election Commission of India, Faye.
All right, Javed
Faye,
Ansari, go ahead.
Faye, I am not the spokesperson of the Election Commission of India, but as the spokesperson,
No, that's
of
fine. You
Bharatiya
already
Janata
had your
Party,
say. Yes.
and as a awakened citizen of my country, I know this thing, that how the things work. But the political parties who know their result beforehand,
Okay,
they
all
have
right.
got
No,
all sorts of excuses,
no,
and
Anila
they
Singh,
just
unless you're
want
going to give us a
attack Prime
specific
Minister.
answer,
They don't
I'm going to have to
anything
cut
more
you
than
off
that.
and move to
But
Javed
let
Ansari.
me-
Mr. Ansari, do you see any logic at all?
I'm not getting even 10 seconds to...
No, but Anila, you're refusing to answer any of the questions I'm asking you. This is not a platform for an election speech. I'm sorry.
I just want to tell one thing, Faye, that why not?
Why not
Election
what?
preparation is done not in a month's time. It is years together, hard work, which Bharatiya Janata Party
Admit
had
your
been
failure.
doing.
Admit your
And that
failure
is
in
why
this
the opposition is rattled and
failed.
baffled today.
Javed
No,
Ansari.
your party is failure. No, Mr. Adil, your political party is failed. The way you are mocking
You can't hold
every
state
agency in
elections.
the
That's a
country,
failure.
this
All right.
is
You have
proof.
surrendered.
So actually, that's a fair question. Let's
You have
ask Anila
surrendered
Singh.
to
All right,
anti-India forces.
Anilaji, I'm going to give you
You can't hold
one more
democratic
opportunity
If
to
you can-
answer.
If the situation is conducive to hold Lok Sabha
Yes.
elections, what makes you think that it is not conducive for
Regarding
assembly
Bharatiya
elections?
Janata Party,
If you
I
are
am
saying
going to
that
answer
if
you.
the,
If you are going to ask me question regarding Election Commission of India, I can't.
Okay,
I
Anila
totally
Singh,
trust
Anila
Election
Singh,
Commission
fine.
of India,
Let me
whatever decision
rephrase
they
the
have
question.
taken,
Anila
they
Singh,
have taken
you have to
it is
listen to
right.
the question in order to be able to answer it. Let me rephrase the question. If you are saying the Election Commission checked on the ground and found good enough reason not to hold a state election in Jammu and Kashmir, does that not prove that the situation on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir has worsened in the last 5 years? Because before this, we were actually able to, as a country, hold elections in that state whenever we thought necessary. If we are having to postpone elections because of the security situation, is that not clear indication that the situation in the ground has gotten worse?
Absolutely.
Anila Singh.
So, Faye, I will just say two things. Faye, I will just say two things on it. Number one, I am pretty sure that the panelists are not ignorant of the latest conditions happening in Jammu and Kashmir. And secondly, I really wish and I really hope that Jammu and Kashmir, and
So admit
especially if
you
I talk
failed.
about the
The situation
Kashmir,
is worsened.
it has the same condition status of like other states in our country.
Okay, I don't know what that
If we are
answer
talking
means.
about Kashmir, then definitely we have to see and do
That's
things
why you can't hold
in
elections.
different perspective.
Okay, all right. I'm going to move on to our other
can't
guest,
say that,
Javed
if
Ansari.
in,
All right,
why
Anila Singh, I gave you an
Jammu and
opportunity to
Kashmir
answer, and you didn't really
things
answer
are
my
happening
question.
as in Uttar
Javed
Pradesh.
Ansari,
You can't
Kangshik
compare
Nag, Mr. Javedji, first to you. Do you see any sort of logic in the decision that has been made about the Jammu and Kashmir state elections, and do you buy any of the arguments being given to us by the BJP representative?
Well, absolutely none. And I would be willing to give the benefit of doubt to the government, provided it shares with us reasons. as concerned citizens. Anila Singh and our party are not the only concerned citizens in this country. All of us are concerned citizens, and we have a right to know as to why simultaneous polls are not being held in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That too, at a time when a party which has been fronting this debate, this demand for simultaneous polls across the country, in the absence of any logical explanation from the government or from the Election Commission, this will only lend credence to all kind of speculation. All kinds of motives will be attached, and the Election Commission and the Government of India, both of them owe it to themselves and to the people of India to share the reasons why this has not been held. Because here was a party, here was a senior ministers of this government who were fronting this demand for simultaneous polls. And now suddenly, when the time has come, we not only is Jammu Kashmir being deprived of an assembly, across the country you have elections which are spread over close to 2 months. Just imagine the kind of expenditure. I know of candidates who will be polling in the 7th phase of elections, and they've been telling me that they have in effect, for all practical purposes, they have a 70-day campaign period. Just imagine the kind of costs involved.
Well, very well said. Now, we've run out of time. Unfortunately, I have to wrap this up. But, like I said earlier, in a democracy, we're allowed as citizens to ask questions. Democracies have, especially ours, has checks and balances. We have the media that will continue to ask questions of all organizations, independent and otherwise, all institutions, independent and otherwise, including the Election Commission. We must acknowledge that a general election, a Lok Sabha election in India, is a colossal, complicated process. The fact that we are able to do it fair and free and bloodless is extremely important. But that doesn't mean that we're not allowed to ask questions, and we're not allowed to pay very close attention to the decisions that are made. Thanks for watching.